Hey everyone, this is episode, I guess, 16 of the D'ART Shtajio vlog. I'm Henry Thurlow.
This is Arthur Isom.
And today we're going to talk about, I guess, well, look, a lot of people have commented about different things that they want to see. And one thing that I've seen again and again is like, I want to hear the specifics of different roles in making animation production. Like what is the difference between all the positions and exactly like what does each one require, right? So that's what I'm kind of thinking about mentioning. But you're thinking about
well, yeah, I think
how that I'm slightly confused about today's topic. So
Okay.
the topic is generally like, what are the key essential parts of an animation studio? If someone wanted to make their own, is that what you're thinking?
we were thinking like what are the kind of the essential parts for at least the creative side of the studio, I guess, right? So we won't really go into the business aspect or anything because obviously you need more than just the artist, but at least for if you just want to have the kind of the creative part of your animation studio you wanted to do, and you were thinking about you have some friends and you guys are all artists and you're like, man, we have a cool idea, we want to make our own studio. Like, what are the definite positions that you have to have, I guess?
Okay, so you want to start?
Okay, so I would say, well, so first it depends on what type of studio. So there are two types, right? You're either production, production house where you're just doing work for hire for other people, or if your studio is actually, they both say the same word, but like if you're producing original content, right? So, and then because that would differ a little bit only with what's necessary in the earlier stages, I guess, the positions. But
I see. If you're producing stuff entirely in-house, so yeah, like let's say you're sitting at home, like I want to start up a little studio, right? Are you going to just get some clients and then do a part for like whatever they ask and then deliver it to them, or are you looking to produce something from the beginning? Maybe you might also still have clients, but like what will be asked of you isn't to deliver some small animation. It'll be like deliver something from scratch. So like world design and stuff needs to be created by you.
Even the other positions.
That is a big difference. There are a lot of like in between studios here. If you watch anime, you'll see like the same studio names a whole bunch of times in almost every single anime. Like how did that studio work on every anime? I mean, we do that half the time too, right? So our name pops up on a whole ton of random anime. So it's like, these guys are the production house behind that anime? Of course not, right? We help out. So if that's all you wanted to do, though, if that's, let's say, all we wanted to do, like we just want every week our name to be on other anime and that would be all of our work. In that case, we probably don't need a world designer, right? Because we'll be helping out another studio who already has designed their world, and what we need to deliver is, and then you choose whatever your studio's going to do, whatever service they're going to provide, and then you just make sure to have staff that is able to do that aspect of the production, and then that'll be your studio.
So I think, and that's a little tricky thing. So I guess we'll just kind of say, so we won't go through every single type of studio that there is. So let's just say, okay, you're going to create content from beginning to end, right? So you want in your you want to have a little studio, and you're gonna make an original story, and you're gonna animate it, right? And then that's that. So then we'll just kind of go from that perspective, I think, maybe.
I'll go into details when we get to the animation aspect. If it's pre-production, what do you think?
So for pre-production, so of course you have to have. So I would think you at least need the original idea, right? So either now I don't know, you don't really need to have a writer on staff, because if you I don't know, that's kind of up in the air.
It depends how you merge positions. Is the director partially writer, so like that person can edit exactly what's happening if need be at some point in the project, or does someone need to completely and utterly confirm exactly what's happening in the story beforehand? Because if that's the case, then you do need a writer, because someone
like you need someone who can write. So like obviously it can either be the same person who's directing, but that is a position, right? So if you're making your content from scratch, someone has to come up with the story. So I would say you definitely have to have a writer or a person on your staff team who can write. And then once you have your writer, then the next part, which is kind of important, which I don't know which would be the next most important, is your designer. Now this designer, I'm just going to kind of say generally designer, because you don't have to, obviously we're talking about a small studio, so you don't have to break up the positions so much. So a designer just needs to be a person who is skilled enough to draw worlds, characters, animals, props and things. Like, if you're just doing like a 1-minute animation or something, generally one person can draw everything required.
I do think generally, though, there's a difference between world design and character design.
Oh, no, there is obviously a difference.
One person, if one person can do it, that's quite a skilled person. Usually, I think that would probably be 2 positions.
That'd be like 4 positions or 5. So the positions can be all broken up to even more, right?
Of course, depending on how big the project is.
But, we're talking about tiny. Because so I think you'd have to think about how many people you want. Because if you just broke up designers, like Henry said, you'd have world designer, character designer, prop designer, like vehicle designer, which is sometimes separate than props, and then mechanical designer, if you're doing like robots and things like that. And those are all like totally different designers. So, but now you've got like 5 or 6 people who are just only the designer team. Mm-hmm. So, and you haven't even gotten to the rest of your production. So then now you're starting to kind of break apart from being a small animation studio. So I'd say like just getting a person who can generally draw things well enough, and then you should be kind of okay. Like if this person can draw people fairly well, it's good. He could draw like a building or two, a room or two. It's pretty good. And although like Henry said, world designer can generally at least draw props and things like that, whereas character design is a little bit different. So maybe at the minimum you need maybe 2, right? If you can't get all of that in one person. But
so we're at writer, we're at a character artist, we're at a world designer artist, right?
And then after that,
how you then? Well, before we get to animation, definitely a storyboard artist.
The storyboard artist.
Someone needs to translate the story to,
like a visual, so that the rest of the team can understand.
Yeah,
to know what they're doing.
The storyboard is almost the most important thing in the production, to be honest, because this is where like what you're going to end up seeing is decided. Later on. There'll be details about like how
Can you close
later on, obviously you can mess with how detailed things are and if things look good or bad, but
I was going towards Ascension, man. I was like,
the storyboard really decides how many cuts there's going to be, what the angles are going to be, how motion is going to kind of match from one cut to the next cut, how long you sit in one area before you go to the next area, right? How close you are to a character's face when they're delivering a line of dialogue. Mm-hmm. So like all the filmmaking is really decided in the storyboards.
They're like the cinematographer.
They 100% are the cinematographer, which is why usually, to be honest, in Japanese animation, not always, but very often you'll see the enshutsu, the technical director, or episode director, be the storyboard artist, because later on they're going to be the ones that are really focusing on making sure the choreography and everything, cinematography is working in this section. And so if they're the person who decided what that cinematography is going to be in the first place, then they can just stick with what was in their mind to create it later, right? Yeah. So you'll see that name actually as the storyboard artist and the episode director quite often. That person... And it could all be it's make or break at the storyboard phase. Not entirely, right? But if you have terrible storyboards that like the characters are just all right in the middle of the screen every single time, and like this is going to look bad later on, it doesn't matter how detailed your characters are or how nice they move and how many great artists you get later on, the film at the very end of the day is just going to be bad and boring, right? Whereas great storyboards, the reverse effect can happen, like you didn't have the best animators on that, it's kind of choppy, but man, like it's playing like a really nice film, right? Like I'm following everything well and I'm excited to see what's happening, right? So definitely storyboard artist.
And then once you have that, then you can kind of
start passing out to animation.
You can go to your animator.
So in my experience, the West kind of breaks up the positions differently from Japan, and I think in a previous video we probably went over that. Here in Japan you'd usually need probably more positions than in the West. Here in Japan,
small studio.
Even if it's small, you definitely want probably a layout artist who is willing to then do their own secondary key animation, right? So like they are going to lay out the whole sequence and move the character themselves, and later on when it all needs to be cleaned up and really ready to be in between, they are going to stick with their sequence,
I think
right?
we'll stick with the Disney side, right? So that's kind of what the Disney artists do, right? Except, I mean, they obviously have their own, they have separate in-betweeners, but
then in Japan also they would, so I kind of feel like in Japan there's a person that does the layout and secondary key animation. Hopefully that's the same person. But then there's an animation director that kind of holds the style together, really solid. This is the person that can truly probably draw best on the whole staff. And this is the person that, fixes things to make sure it looks a very specific way. Because one animator, even if you're a small studio, probably one animator isn't going to animate your entire thing, depending on what it is. But
you need at least, so you need to at least have one, let's say, obviously, so it's an animation, so you need a lot of animators, right? So that should be the part that has the most people. But if it's just the size of your studios in your house or in your living room or something, say you're starting there, of course you're not going to have 20 animators sitting in your living room. So maybe you have at least 2 or 3, right? And then now, of course, the number of your animators then determines how long it's going to take you to make your project. But generally, ideally, if you're just thinking about a small animation studio, you don't want to have to separate your part. You don't want to have to separate the amount of work that the person is doing. So it's best to have one person, or each animator should be able to complete their task. So they should be able to, like Henry said, do their layout, do cleanup, and even, if possible, do their own in-betweens. Ideally,
in-betweens is unthinkable in Japan, but in the West it's not, right? There are definitely jobs where it's like you need to in-between the whole thing yourself. Usually someone else would still clean it up later, but it's reasonable. So there's a lot of different kind of methods throughout the world, and you need different amounts of people depending on how exactly you want to follow. But
definitely, if you have a small animation studio, you're not going to be making a feature film in your house by yourself. So
of course, but if there's 3 animators, let's say, right, the exact drawing style of each person, the exact way that they draw a face or where their weak points are all different, right? And so and they all might like to move things in totally different ways. Even if you have a meeting beforehand and it's like, everyone, this is how we're deciding, we need to stick to this, and even if they're trying to be good with that, their sequences will not link up 100%. It will be clear that didn't the last 5 sequences look a little bit different than these 5 sequences? Now, maybe you're okay with that, and anime recently actually is set up so that you do kind of notice when the different animators change. But if you don't want that and you want some kind of consistency, one of your animators or an additional person as animation director should go in and make minor corrections to make sure that everything is linking up exactly.
Depends how you want to do it. So Ghibli, right? Obviously Miyazaki does that.
Himself.
But if you work at Disney, all the animators just have really high caliber, and there's no person who corrects everyone's drawing. So you don't need that position. But if you don't have that position, then you have to make sure that everyone draws at the same level. So then you'd have to kind of practice, right? Like these are what the character, or you can do what Disney did, which is they just separate the characters, right? So this person's weakness is this. Don't have him animate that character, right?
Yeah.
And then this person's weakness is this, and then that way every time the scene comes in and those two characters are in there, if the same person animates the same character, you don't recognize the problem because the same person is animating that same character throughout the whole film.
That's a really interesting method. I kind of like that, but other than Disney, that's so hard
it's
to.
really difficult to do that.
Yeah.
Though. Yeah. So there's that, and then so that's all the animation. Then once you finish animation, then it's what, coloring.
Oh, even if you have the animators miraculously in between and clean up their own stuff, they still aren't going to hand color. I doubt everything, right? So definitely some person.
It's possible if you use Harmony. The same person, the same animator can then go and then color all of their frames. So that would depend on, what's your budget and how's your staff looking.
Yeah.
You either have one person color, like you can have your staff also color everything, or you can have a position for that. You would most likely need the one position. So now this is interesting because you have your world designer. So if they're only good at drawing but not good at color, then maybe they can't decide what the colors are. But I don't know, because more than color, you can have the same person color everything, but you would definitely need someone to choose your colors.
Yeah.
Like what color is this?
Colorist.
Because if you just say, "Oh, everybody color," and then no one's decided what each color, as the characters, like what color is this guy's pants, and what color is it. So, who you need someone who can color everything. Now, it can be one of the other people who are on your staff who are skilled at coloring, could then also be the colorist, or you need a color person who's going to.
Well, it's in terms of how many people you individually need, that it's kind of hard to guess for anyone because everyone has different skills. So like if they know someone who can both world design and is also amazing with colors, then one person can do the role of multiple people. But in terms of just the roles, right? So far we're at writer, what is it? Character designer,
world designer,
world designer, storyboard artist,
animation,
layout artists, like in-betweeners. Even if you're, let's say your layout / animators can just do everything great. Let's say they're Disney level amazing and can do that themselves, so that doesn't need to be broken down. It still is a different task to do all the layout and keys and in-betweens though even. So yes, the same person could do both theoretically, but like it is quite a different task. And then but person who's actually going to color the things, plus a person who decides all of the colors for every single sequence. So we're not even done yet, and we've already got 8 people.
It's a lot. So now you got
8 positions at least, if not people.
Yeah, 8 people.
Just to go to show, I mean, the moral of this video is obviously going to be, yes, you can do it. Let's say you just have a handful of people that are really dedicated, but each person is going to have to take on multiple roles because the roles necessary to complete animation at all is a lot. It's not like, oh, there's an animator and he'll draw backgrounds. We're done, right? You're not done. Like, just to complete anything, there are a lot of roles that need to be played through.
Yeah. And
then once you're at that
color, now everything's colored.
What about backgrounds? Is that the world designer person?
That's right. Yeah. So you still have to then paint all your backgrounds. Now you could have the world designer paint the backgrounds, or you need a person who specifically paints backgrounds. So depending on how expensive you want your team, how expensive you want your team to be. You can either, I'd say, try to get the world designer who can paint his own backgrounds, but if not, then then you need a background painter, and which you probably would just need a background painter anyway, though, because depending on how long your backgrounds, how long your animation is, you're gonna have quite a bit of backgrounds.
Yeah.
So if you have like 3 animators, at least one background painter is good, right? Then
all of your kind of work is done. It's time to make a video, but you can't just slap all of these together real quick and expect it to look great with all of the nice effects and lighting effects and everything. For all of these now cool paintings and animation sequences with flat color to actually edit or render out every sequence with all these effects that make it really feel like a world. You need a compositor, at least one compositor. So they will composite everything together into one sequence, put all these great effects. It really feels like a world, and then they will render out individual sequences, right?
Yeah.
But then you're still not done, because then you need an editor to put them all together, right? And the editor can, cut or extend sequences a little bit, as they go through to make sure everything's really working well. The episode director and the storyboard artist might have had all of these ideas of exactly how it would play out, but at the very last second, when you just stack all the sequences up next to each other, certain things might not play out as smoothly as you assumed. So there should be an editor who can be like, okay, here's what we have. If we snip this, if we trim this, then it'll really play nicely.
Yeah.
But by the way, then you have your video 100% done, but it's just a silent film, and you're just watching complete silence, right? Yeah. So I mean, if you consider that done, okay, but chances are you need some sound people.
Yeah, you need the people talking, you need the sound effects, you need the music, and
it's very honestly, like you talk about,
let's see, the dialogue you can split between your team. Right, like you can have the animators and the background artists and stuff, and everyone can choose a character. So I'd say the dialogue, obviously, I'm not saying that that's not an art form, because obviously it is an art form, and the actors, the voice actors, are super talented, and they know how to, dive deep into, the character bios and how do they pull this voice out. But you have a small studio, so let's just say you don't get the voice actors, but at least they don't get the voice actors, don't get the director, right?
And they could also do like a pantomime film where it's like maybe there's no talking, right? And like just some action plays out.
Ignore dialogue. But
even still, music and sound effects.
Yeah, those two are really important.
And I doubt the same person will do both, frankly speaking.
Usually, I mean, unless you just want all of your audio. I mean, the music person can go online and just download sound effects, right? Like now they have lots of sound effects libraries, but that's a whole other debate. So it's possible to have the same person do it. Like you can have a person who's good at making music. But
by the way, once you even make those things, they have to be sent back to the editor. So hopefully your editor can do both video and sound editing, and you don't need two people
for that. Yeah,
usually that's even two people.
Because the video editor is really good at visuals and visual timing and like beats and things like that. So you have to have that same kind of feeling for sound, right? Like it's like, okay, I mean, I don't know, there's some things that's just like you can just look at it and know, obviously if the door closes, there's a sound of the door closing there.
Making those sound effects is really hard.
But it is really difficult. That's such a that's
cool. Foley.
Yeah, Foley.
Foley is a whole career in and of itself, and those people are so important. Yeah. Because without
almost
them,
super important. I kind of feel that, like, although we're not talking about them like dying industries or anything, I feel like because the advent of digital age and now people can just go online and get sound libraries, people are forgetting how important Foley is.
That's so bad.
And it's crazy because now all you're going to have is what we're getting in this industry is that all the audio sounds the same. Like you hear the exact same scream, the exact same door slam, the exact same like cat meow or whatever.
Yeah.
And every from you got Hollywood films that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, or up to $100 million, and then you have the little studios that have the exact same sound effects. That's crazy because it shouldn't be, right? So and then Foley, I remember they go in there, they're breaking glass and stuff like that.
Yeah. They got sheets of metal that they're and that ends up being like the ocean water.
The ocean water crashing or something.
But good Foley can save even the worst of things, and bad Foley can ruin even the best of things.
Yeah, your team could do a great job.
Take whatever animation you think is the best in the world. Let's say a Satoshi Kon film or something like that, right? Or Akira, right? Yeah. And play out the exact same sequence. He's on the bike in Akira, right? Yeah. But then have the Foley as or
something
it'll be like the sequence is ruined completely.
Yeah. So you definitely need a music person, and if possible have the sound person separate, but or just sound. I say sound is important, so a person who can do both, if or both positions, and then
I guess
that's pretty much
moral
it, right?
of the story is look, if you're like 3 people in a basement and you want to give it a shot, do it. Heck yeah, I absolutely encourage that. But understand the 3 of you will have to
separate the
to do
positions,
all of these positions, and that's bare minimum. We just said bare minimum, so you will really need to do all of these parts.
And just be aware that all those parts are important and necessary. Like you can separate the numbers however you want to, but at least if you were starting your own animation studio, those are like at the bare minimum the most important positions. We think. Yeah. All right, that's that. Shtajio ga daiji.
Shtajio ga daiji. See you guys next time. Let us know if you have any topics you want us to cover that we haven't yet.
Peace.
See you.